What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It looks like Microsoft's vision is starting to come together for next generation with Helix, of course spreading Windows across basically everything when it comes to gaming, and a recent update that they announced yesterday I think is working to solidify that, and yeah, it even works into backwards compatibility for Xbox games on PC, which sounds awesome, but we'll take a look at that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony as they continue to get blasted online, but now we're starting to see some developers be asked about this, and even some analysts chiming in on some big outlets out there, really laying into them. And we have some of the sales data for June with the Circana sales report showing actually a pretty steep decline overall from last year, but it kind of makes sense when you realize what exactly it's being compared to. But all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Also, we are over on Spotify now, along with YouTube, video, audio, the whole thing. So if you want to check it out there, you can. I have it linked down below in the description. Like, follow, subscribe, whatever else they have going on over there. And we're going to start today with a very bizarre update. It's Mindseye, somehow, and well, here's the update video. You know, I saw this. This was a legitimate double take from me for what they are saying is Update 8, Grenade Football Multiplayer. Yes, this is Mindseye. Now, I kind of think the idea here is originally they said that Mindseye was built in this, I don't know, everything engine or something, and the idea was you could make whatever you want in it. Is that what this is supposed to be? Because it does not look like Mindseye. My favorite part, though, is when they were going through, they have these reviews pop up, and it's, you know, it's saying nice things about the Mindseye, I guess, and it's all user reviews, which is, it's just funny. I don't know. I have no idea half the time if the studio there with Mindseye is being like serious, that this is sincere from them, or if they're being tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, because that's what this looks like to me. So if they're serious, good luck to them. I mean, they're still going somehow, so there you go. New Mindseye update. You can go check it out. Also, we have that Metal Gear Solid Collection, the Master Collection Volume 2, coming out next month. I'm very excited for it because Metal Gear Solid 4 finally making the jump to other platforms outside of the PlayStation 3. Well, now we're starting to get some of the specifications we can expect from it. This we can see is over on Konami's website. Now, they did also talk about Peace Walker, but to be honest, I mostly zoned in here on Guns of the Patriot, Metal Gear Solid 4, because again, it's so intriguing to see how they're able to move this over to other platforms and the results. So PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, you're looking at 3840 by 2160, about 25 gigabytes or so, 25, 26 gigabytes. That seems pretty manageable there overall. Internal resolution also matches up there. 60 FPS. The Xbox Series S drops down to 1440p at 60 FPS. The Switch 2, that will also be sitting, because it looks like they have handheld mode and TV mode, obviously, and they also have selectable image quality, it looks like, so adjusted or original, but it comes down to 1440p internal resolution, but it will output then at 4K, upscaled, and coming in at 60 FPS. That's also going to be in handheld mode, 1080p at 60 FPS, so this is looking good. Like, I'm very excited for Metal Gear Solid 4. It's going to look incredible, by the way, there. Now, the PS3 version technically could, I mean, there was nothing stopping it from the game's perspective from it going to 60 FPS. It's just the PS3 the hardware wasn't going to get it there. But now, finally, we will be able to see it at a nice, clean, hopefully crisp 60 FPS and really, really good image quality, because that game now still holds up despite obviously being at a lower resolution on the PS3. So it should look really, really good on these other platforms. Looking forward to that one next month when it releases. Oh, and we do have a big multiplayer reveal set for next week. This we can see being sent out by Gears of War over on the social media account. Tune in on July 30th, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern for the Gears of War E-Day multiplayer reveal. They also have the beta coming up as well. But this is not make or break for the game, because people will still enjoy the single player. This is what will have lasting appeal for the game, like all the other Gears of War games with the multiplayer. If it's really good, I mean, this could be incredible, right? But it's going to come down to how exactly it sits with the community. As well, Gears of War Reloaded, it was fun. I will admit it started to show its age the more and more that I played it anyway. So here's hoping there's a lot more, which I would assume there is, for Gears of War E-Day. We'll find out next week. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Microsoft putting out, I'd say, a pretty big update on the PC and Xbox relationship that they're trying to just smash together at this point. I mean, really conjoining the Xbox console side and the PC side, it's pretty obvious with the way they're talking about next generation, their platform with Helix, is kind of their end goal. So eventually you have to figure out how to get the library that's on Xbox right now mostly over to PC, and that does include some of the original Xbox, some of the Xbox 360 games that people on the Xbox Series do enjoy through backwards compatibility with that program. It looks like that's what they're starting now, because we can see this is over on their news.xbox.com website saying today we're introducing Xbox backward compatibility on PC, making it easier to play classic Xbox games from the past across PC and handhelds, including the ROG Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X. Players can jump into the following games on PC and supported handheld devices beginning today. So this is available right now in supported regions. We have Blinks the Time Sweeper, Conquer Live and Reloaded, Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge, and Fusion Frenzy. That is awesome. Like, just to see, I mean, Blinks, I mean, if you go just by the list there or left to right from the graphic they show, I mean, Blinks is number one then, I guess. Okay, now, so the idea, though, of having these games, obviously them working with the original Xbox library, but, I mean, Blinks, that's a lot of fun. That's one I would love to see them go back to with I'd say a smaller budget in mind, but just trying to see what they can do with IPs that, I mean, honestly, people are probably just completely unfamiliar with. That was a poll, by the way, that I asked. We'll check that out later on in the show. And then Conquer Live and Reloaded is absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who try that out even for the first time. But they say players can customize graphic settings, including up to 4 times resolution upscaling, VSync support, full screen window display modes, anisotropic filtering, enhanced anti-aliasing, and more. These games also include customizable language and audio settings. And they're going a bit further here. This will be later on this year. So these games are available now in the Xbox app on Windows. You can try it out. But the first 4 games releasing in preview now will be updated later on this year to include achievements. That is really cool too. Now we see this with PlayStation Plus in their premium, where we get some older, we'll say a PS2 game. Like I'm playing Psyops, right? That right now has trophies added in. It's like 20 of them, and there's a platinum trophy. So I love to see this with older titles. It's something I'd like to see Nintendo even work out with those like digital card collectibles that they did for Donkey Kong with that challenge. If they started adding those into like GameCube titles or more Super Nintendo N64, each one had a really cool list of them, that would be awesome. So I love the idea of going back to older retro style games and adding in fun milestones, achievements, trophies, anything like that. And it looks like we will indeed be seeing that here with this program from Microsoft in a few months. Now, Digital Foundry did do some initial testing here. Unfortunately, they saw that 3 of the 4 games ran at 30 FPS on the original hardware, and that limit is maintained for the new PC releases. Fusion Frenzy is the 60 FPS exception and runs at the same frame rate on PC. They also found some graphical oddities and glitches and stuff that were happening across the board for these different games, and some weird stuff when it came to resolution. Remember, these are, according to Microsoft, launching into preview, so because PC, there are so many different configurations, it makes sense why this being, I mean, emulation, that they want to have a wide net, like a bunch of testers out there basically trying these out and giving them feedback so that they can work through and fix some of these issues in future updates. But I think this is awesome. Sure, these are things that were already available on the Xbox, but Microsoft wants to, again, put everything together under one umbrella. They got to get this started eventually, and the fact that it is tied, yes, to their Xbox app. I know you can emulate these things separately, I get it, but it does kind of give them, I guess, another step up even over other launchers that don't have access to games that you could, I mean, you could just buy it if you want. It's on Xbox Game Pass, and being able to then launch up Conquer or you see Fusion Frenzy or Blinks is cool, but then you start to think about all the other things that could happen, and I saw some people mention, oh wait, does this mean that Lost Odyssey or Blue Dragon could go to PC? Because we're dealing with original Xbox. Xbox 360 would be the next logical step, and yeah, I think that's going to be the case. I feel like Microsoft wants to go to a point where when they launch next generation, it's just about as across the board as possible, because they're going to be leaning into Windows across the board. So it kind of has to be like that. But this was a really fun announcement to see pop up in the morning, and I'm looking forward to more updates and more additions in terms of the library of games that are accessible to PC as we go along. Next up, let's talk about Sony, who is continuing to get blasted online, but also in like mainstream media. That's continued. And now people, as they're getting access to directors out there and developers, they're asking them about this. I mean, it's still a hot button topic. So I think this is going to be a pretty consistent thing. And you know what? As we go into something like Gamescom, absolutely expect to see, I'm sure, all kinds of quotes get dropped online. In fact, one that got dropped online yesterday was quite scathing. And this, we can see, this is over on Noisy Pixel, as they were conducting an interview at Anime Expo 2026. Again, big conventions. You're able to ask some of these different people. Disgaea creator Sohei Nikawa did actually respond, asking about the physical media kind of going away with Sony, where they say, I think physical editions of games are very important. For fans, being able to keep a game they love as an object can have a great deal of value. It becomes a memory or a keepsake connected to something that matters to them. They can also bring that physical game to an event like this and ask someone to sign it. Afterward, they can take it home, display it, and decorate their room with it. Physical games are important because they can carry that kind of meaning. And you know what? That's a fair point. He goes on to say, from a purely business perspective, I can understand why the people at Sony would make that decision. However, the executives who decided it have probably never experienced coming to an event like Anime Expo and having someone approach them with a physical game to ask for an autograph. I would agree with them here. That is absolutely, I don't think any of the suits are at Anime Expo right now with them in the trenches, so to speak, on the show floor or anything like that. Says I don't think they understand the feelings of those fans, and they may never have considered what physical editions mean to the people who value them. And I think there is something to the idea that a game being tangible, like actually like having, say, a PS2 game in front of you, or a GameCube game, or a PS1 game, or an Xbox game, anything like that, right? You have it in front of you, and there is that tangible feeling of being connected to it, to where you can have it up on the shelf for years, right? You have childhood memories, teenage memories, growing up with it, and then you take it off the shelf, it's still there, it's still that same game, and you immediately get hit with nostalgia. Like, it just happens, right? It's something it's hard to necessarily describe or put into words, but that feeling is there, and being attached in that way to a game that you really like, for the last several decades now, you do become more attached also to that franchise. So I think there is something that's being missed here, outside of obviously the spreadsheet decision that was made by Sony, because having a franchise, we'll say like Disgaea, right? There are all kinds of Disgaea games, and they're all physical, and you can get them, and they're big-time Disgaea fans, but I do wonder if they would have as many Disgaea fans if it was always just an icon on the dashboard, right, for your system. I don't know. Now, he goes on to say, if they're going to go as far as eliminating physical packages, they may as well eliminate the hardware too. Wow. A television would be enough. Why would you need the console? If you're going to get rid of physical games, you may as well go all the way. Whew, okay, hold on a minute there. We went from getting rid of the disc now to just getting rid of the console. Like, no more hardware. Although, I think that's, so let's say we have the roadmap in front of us. That's probably part of it. It's like, okay, first we got to get them launching from just the dashboard, just the screen, just the icon. You press it and it launches the game. Okay, now we need to get to the point where they launch the game, but there's no download, and they don't really think much about it because it just streams. And they've already been launching it anyway. There's no tangible object. I mean, I think they're jumping a little ahead here, but they're right in saying, you know what? That is something that separated the console from, say, streaming, or the console from PC. It was the idea that you pop the disc in. Sure, I understand. It's just data that's stored on the disc, and you copy it to the SSD for the PS5. But it's still something that shows you have the game. And yes, it's tangible to where you can trade it, you can sell it, you can put it up on the shelf and look at it if you want. But much, much different than when it's just digital and it's in the cloud and it's just part of your digitized library that you can occasionally look at on your PlayStation 5 with a bunch of squares all over the screen. Now, there is one other quote here. This is from an analyst over on CNBC who was discussing this. They were looking for all kinds of quotes with different people in the industry. This is Michael Futter, who's the co-founder of video game industry consultancy F Squared, says, "This is an extremely anti-consumer decision that has no legitimate justification and communicates a disdain for players in their ecosystem." Man, they were after Sony today. "Sony would love for us to believe that the PC market's shift to digital is the exact same thing as consoles going down that path. It simply isn't." Now that is true, because the PS5 is a closed ecosystem. Taking away discs from that versus taking it away from the PC, I mean, there are so many different launchers you can load up on PC. It actually ends up annoying the PC user base that there are so many launchers. So it's not comparable. There is competition on an open platform like the PC, even though it's all digital. But the whole point here is you're taking away choice, because you're taking, like, there's two choices you can make when you buy a game on the PlayStation 5. You can get it physically, or you can get it digitally. Now you're removing one, and it's literally just then all digital at that point from one source. That's the big thing. That's the differentiating factor from buying something on PC where there's launchers everywhere, there's key sites. It's craziness. So it's, hey, the pressure continues to mount with Sony, but it kind of feels like now, because it's been so long, I think they're bulldozing. They're going to attempt to bulldoze the situation. We'll see how that works out for them. Probably when they get up to the PS6 generation, they attempt to launch that, because as of now, they're silent. Alana Pierce made a video talking about how she had heard from some people within Sony that basically PlayStation put out a notice of, yeah, don't say anything on social media at all. Like a very strict, be quiet notice, essentially. So I think they're full speed ahead right now. I honestly, I'd give them maybe another week or two, and if nothing comes out of that, they'll get pressed eventually on it, but I think this is it. They're really going to try to push forward with all digital for the PlayStation 6, and we'll see how that one works out. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Circana sales report. This does cover the month of June, and as you guessed, we're now comparing Switch 2 versus Switch 2 launch. So it's no longer Switch 2 versus Switch 1 from the previous year. And it went about as you'd expect, since the June last year with the Switch 2 was a massive launch for the system. It's going to be hard to keep that momentum, and it was down quite significantly. But we'll go over some of the nuance here with that. First, though, we can see Matt Piscatella over on social media saying June 2026 video game highlights thread from Circana. This then covers video game market in the US, okay? So the video game spending in the US fell 21% in June, and this was driven by Nintendo Switch 2's record June 2025 launch comparable. If we take a look at the top 10 games here, we have UFC 6 was number 1, then we have Mecha Chameleon. It's number 2. That's pretty impressive, actually. That's over on, it's on Steam. I haven't played it or anything, but I mean, number 2, that's pretty good. 007 First Light then drops to 3. Star Fox coming in at 4. They are attempting to do, you see the little asterisk next to it. They are including, they say, digital sales projections, and they just have, I'm sure, all kinds of formulas and data that they can go over to try to get it as close as they can within margin of error for that. But I think Star Fox at number 4, that's pretty good. Now, they also track by revenue. Star Fox wasn't a full price game even at retail. So I'd say, for the most part, that's pretty solid there. Moving over to the hardware, though, the Switch 2 hardware spending was 79% below the platform's total during its June 2025 launch month. PlayStation 5 spending fell by 19% year on year, while Xbox Series, get this, more than doubled last June. That's interesting that Xbox saw a bit of a spike there in terms of sales. The Switch 2 was again the best-selling hardware platform across both units and dollars for the month, and that also covers year-to-date for 2026. PS5 ranks second across both measures, which then obviously leaves the Xbox. They're in at third place. So, I mean, the Switch continues to roll along there. As expected, it is still tracking ahead of the Switch 1 by about 11%, according to Matt, when you launch align them. But it's going to get tougher for Nintendo. Like, the system's going to be jumping in price $50 as we get towards that holiday season. I know Ocarina of Time is there, and they have several other releases also upcoming with things like Fire Emblem and the Duskblood supposed to be coming out this year. And then next year, Pokemon will happen. It's just the more expensive the system gets, just the more difficult it is to sell at retail. And I think they'll be forced at this point to raise the price again next year. So I think, based on saying, I think it's going to fall behind the Switch 1 here. at some point, and it's going to be tough for them to claw their way back from that because I don't know if prices are going to be dropping like they were able to with the Switch 1, where eventually they got to the Switch Lite, and that helped out as a kind of a second win. And then they had the OLED and the Redbox Switch. So Nintendo definitely has to get creative here, but at least for now, they're on a good path, at least starting up. And we'll have to see what happens as some of these larger releases come out for them over the next several months, but then certainly going into 2027. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you played Blinks the Time Sweeper before? 81% say no. 19% say yes, and I have great news. That means that 81% of you, if you have PC, you can try it out right now. No, Blinks is an interesting game. I just remember it was super interesting at this time because we started to have games come out that did like market themselves as interesting with the time mechanic of being able to rewind or pause or do all kinds of, and that, I feel like it was this generation going from like PS1 to PS2 or anything like that. We started to see this pop up. I'm thinking of like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. That's one that really sticks out to me. That's where I saw that doing all kinds of stuff with like time manipulation in the game. Really, really cool stuff. Blinks, though, was also right there, and unfortunately, it's kind of forgotten about. So that's one of the reasons I thought it'd be interesting if Microsoft just looked at a lot of their back catalog and were like, I wonder if we could do something lower budget with Blinks or with Banjo and just see what happens in the marketplace. I know they're thinking more along the lines, I feel like we have big releases, like big tentpole titles, few a year, sure. But maybe contract one of those out like you've done with Spyro, right? Where you have Toys for Bob come in. Maybe look at a couple of those smaller titles just to see if you can catch on, like really catch lightning in a bottle with one of these different characters or IPs, and then expand outwards into all kinds of other media, because that seems to be the other big trend right now with gaming. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mats, who says, LTT, I assume that's Linus Tech Tips, said the worst part about the tariffs being deemed illegal is that it was all for nothing, meaning the consumer paid the higher price, is not going to get a refund, and now they are just illegal. It was all for nothing. Well, hold on, don't sell this short. It wasn't just for nothing. There's gonna be some awesome executive level bonuses this year. I mean, the Christmas parties, I'm sure, will be crazy at the top level of like the Chase building or Wells Fargo or whatever. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff I'm sure gonna be happening. Not for us, but like they're gonna get some really cool checks at the end of the year for the yearly bonus. Now, it was absolutely a waste of time. And once they deemed it illegal and they said, hey, we're deeming it illegal, but we're not giving you a plan as to how to pay the money back, that being the Supreme Court to the US government, that's when everything hit the fan, and that's why so many like 1,000 some odd lawsuits popped up, and it's all over the place. But the bottom line is, you're right. From our perspective, it was a big waste of time. For all the suits' perspective, man, that new yacht's gonna be sweet. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about the gaming industry from an analyst perspective with Matt Piscatella. I did have an entire mini podcast discussion with him, and I'll leave that video right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.